Hey guys, and welcome to Storytime with Jester. Tonight I'll be continuing the saga from my novel, The Book of Prophecies. We'll be picking up where we left off in chapter 24. Kelwyn reached through the illusionary wall, fumbling around until he found a doorknob. Thankfully, it was not trapped. The stairs leading up to this level had been trapped, inflicting electrical and fire damage on the group. While he was searching, Andor had been peering through a large, clear gem. "All right, Kelwyn, push open the door," Andor instructed. As he did so, Andor, through the gem, could see through the illusion to the darkness beyond. "Xavier," Andor called, "we need light there," pointing to the desired location. Hawkeye and Jovan had arrows notched and bows half drawn. Marikai, his crossbow loaded and ready to fire, while the others readied their weapons in preparation to charge. Xavier cast a light spell, banishing the darkness and revealing several giant insects, the likes of which they had fought on the web maze. Just then Miranda walked in front of Andor, who was still peering through his gem. He was unprepared to see a beautiful blonde girl. He lowered his gem, his eyes showing him the raven-haired Miranda he had come to know. Placing the gem back to his eye, he again saw a blonde, someone he did not know. Miranda noticed him looking at her with his gem and quickly moved so as to position herself out of his immediate view. The archers loosed their arrows into the chitinous exteriors of the giant insects closest, and the rest of the warriors charged. As they spilled through the doorway and into the room, they found that surrounding the queen was some 24 of her pets. Eric and Finitar were the first through the door, thrusting their blades into the creatures wounded by the arrows, leaving them writhing on the swirled marble floor in their death throes. The queen was a giant black widow spider, her face transformed seemingly at random between spider and a female dark elf. She was close at hand, being a mere 50 feet away. Her flanks were protected by the giant insects and a pair of aberrations, beasts that looked similar to a centaur, but with the body of a spider and head and torso of a dark elf. They were positioned around the outer edges of the enormous arena. The ceiling overhead was 20 feet high and supported by 36 marble pillars. As Eric and Finitar started towards the queen, Andor, still peering through his crystal, yelled in warning, "The floor! It won't support you!" Faruq belted one of the creatures with a mighty swing of his hammer, sending it flying into the middle of the room, where it vanished from sight as it sank below the surface. Eric and Finitar pulled up just shy of the edge of a sandpit. "Quicksand!" Eric yelled out. The queen shot out webbings that hit both knights. With a jerk of her forelegs, the pair was yanked towards her and over the quicksand. Suddenly a web appeared across the area just in front of the queen, who stood on top of the quicksand as if it were solid ground. This new webbing provided a safe, if not sticky, hindrance from the sand of death. The knights landed harmlessly on it, but were now within reach of the queen. Her dark elf face glared at Xavier for his timely spell, then shifted her expression to that of diabolic mischief. Her face then transformed back to spider form, poison dripping from its sharp fangs. Suddenly a large hammer crashed against the spider head. A wave of force erupted and spread out from the point of impact, stunning all nearby. When everyone regained their senses, the queen was exiting through the double doors at the far end of the arena. Andor's Journal. Waterday, 31/12/28. Praise be to St. Columba. We traveled to the Spider Queen's abode on the abyss, where we encountered her and her minions on a strange-looking metallic ship. We battled our way to where she and several score arachnids lay in waiting. We hacked and blasted our way to her. She fled through a door and again waited for us, this time with more arachnids, spiders, and a demon. She had changed form, from that of a giant spider to a beautiful dark elf woman. Our dwarven friends battled the arachnids, while the archers kept firing on the queen, hoping to disrupt any attempt to harm us with her powerful magic, but the arrows just bounced off of her. The demon was left for the spellcasters to battle, along with Thorfinn and Eric. Some damage was done to her, and she once again fled through a door. Hot on her tail was Eric. After the last of her minions had fallen, we came upon her and Eric locked in mortal combat, the queen again in her spider form. Behind her stood 4 mirrors, and upon seeing us she leapt at one and disappeared through it. As she did, it shattered into hundreds of pieces. Her ship lurched and started rumbling and shaking. Not knowing where the other mirrors led, but not wanting to stay aboard and await our fate, we in turn leapt through the remaining 3 mirrors. We appeared back in Sternreich. The dome started shimmering and soon disappeared, sending out a shock wave of force that knocked everyone down, even though we were miles away. We are now being tended by the servants of the king's wizard. Once we have healed and rested, we will be heading back to Folkreach. Chapter 25. The muscular, red-skinned demon stalked into the web-filled room. Clutching a double-bladed axe firmly in its taloned hands, it scanned the area for any threat. The hair on the scruff of its neck stiffened. "Tread lightly, General," a voice from the darkness said. "Do not destroy my handiwork." Through the silvery strands of the webs, the general could make out her form. He had never seen the Queen of Spiders before, but based on reports from other denizens of the abyss, was intrigued to find out for himself. "It appears you do not need my assistance in that regard," he replied, although his feral mouth never moved. The web the Queen had spun was indeed a work of art. It encompassed nearly the entire room itself, and pictured not only the abyss, which was an impossible task itself given the fact that there were an infinite number of layers to the abyss, but the surrounding cosmos and its many worlds. Some of these worlds were linked to various portions of the abyss via more silvery threads. Almost as if in response to the demon's telepathic words, some of these web links began dissolving, unraveling, severing the ties between worlds and the abyss. A snake slithered its way around from behind the demon, its head swaying back and forth in a hypnotic dance right next to its dog-headed counterpart. "Indeed," it said also telepathically, "it appears you have lost your title to the worlds you held sway over." "A mere inconvenience," the Queen replied. "A sacrifice to achieve a greater goal." As she said this, her eyes fixated on a specific location on her web map, a remote location in the midst of the ethereal plane, which had the thinnest of nearly invisible web strands sprouting out in all directions and reaching nearly all worlds. "Must I remind you of the price you paid for your defeat at the hands of a bunch of mortals?" the general sneered. "Not if you wish to keep both of your heads," the Queen snapped back. "You would be wise to remember your place, General Malkson. You are in my service, thanks to your lord. As a matter of fact, I have a task for you. As you have so directly pointed out, I underestimated the mortals, especially the barbarian. They will pay for their meddling. You will send out your assassins to take care of them. But don't be too efficient. I want them to suffer. I want them to fear for their lives. Prolong their deaths. If, after 10 years, any still live, see to their demise personally." "I am not a mere bounty hunter," the general shouted, angry at the position he found himself in. "If your assassins fail, you will personally take charge," she reiterated, "but not before 10 years have passed. Do this, and your service to me is fulfilled." "Agreed," General Malkson said, binding the pact. As he turned to leave, a sly grin appeared on the dog head, his mind already formulating how he would twist the agreement to his gain, while screwing the Queen as much as possible. Andor's Journal. Free Day 39, 1228. We returned home to find all the warring countries had entered into peace talks in the neutral city of Osnaburg. Marikai found out that during the last months of the war, Van had overrun Brandenburg and his castle had fallen. What was left of his soldiers was taking refuge in Folkreach. The elven princess we rescued sent us all gifts, which were waiting for us in sanctuary. Star Day 41, 1228. The fall festival was quite enjoyable. It was a time long overdue. I have noticed Eric taking a liking to Miranda, although I can tell she is highly enamored with Thorfinn. Star Day 42, 1228. Last night I was visited in my dreams by St. Columba. He told of a powerful weapon that will aid in fighting Ikra. It is a rod shaped like a wand. In my dream, I was in a desert battling a lich. I will pray for enlightenment. Moon Day, 42, 12/28. I sent for Eric, Miranda, Thorfinn, and Jovan. The 5 of us will leave tomorrow for the cursed desert. Our hippogriffs are fully trained as flying mounts, so we will take those. Eric is on Honor, Miranda on Star, Thorfinn on Thunder, Jovan on Nightwind, and myself on Truth. Water Day 43, 12/28. We found what we believe to be an entrance to the Lich's crypt. St. Columba be with us. Free Day 43, 12/28. Praise be to St. Columba. By his power we defeated the Lich. Yesterday we fought what we thought to have been him, only to discover that it was a clever deception, along with a false tomb. We almost fell for his trick. Today we rescued a beautiful water creature known as a siren. She had been held prisoner by the Lich's powerful magic. She joined our group, much to the pleasure of Jovan. We finally discovered the true location of the Lich. The siren warned us that he was more powerful than a Lich should be. We destroyed the Lich and gained a fortune in gems and jewelry. In addition, Jovan found a magical sword, and we found the item St. Columba told me about. Eric is the only one that can wield it, so I will leave it in his charge. Free Day 44, 12/28. We returned to Sanctuary. Sonique, the siren, went with Jovan back to the gnarled woods. After studying the Wand of Power, I discover that in order for its full power to become available, that 5 other rods, lesser wands of power, must be found and brought here. Chapter 26. It was early spring. The sun was high in the sky, and the sounds of songbirds filled the air. The young boy was chasing after a rabbit. His father had sent him out to hunt for supper, but he enjoyed chasing the long-eared hoppers much more than killing them. He was so enthralled with the little creature that he failed to notice the commotion back in the village. He didn't hear the screams, nor smell the smoke as the village went up in flames. The rabbit had suddenly stopped moving. This was his chance, he thought. He slowly crept up on it, his hands reaching out ever so cautiously. Then he made his move. He leapt at the rabbit, his hands clasping together as the rabbit darted from his grasp. He landed on the ground, sprawled out in his failed attempt. Just then, he heard a twig break behind him. As he turned in the direction of the sound, the sun blinded him as he looked up at it. Then a shadow partially blocked the intensity of its rays, just long enough for him to realize he was surrounded by several large figures. Before he could react, they were upon him, holding him fast. His eyes were still somewhat dazed. The orange spots that appear in front of one's eyes after looking at the sun still clouded his vision. "Hold him tight," he heard one of his assailants command. Then his eyes burned as if the sun itself had consumed them. He let out a scream from the intense pain and collapsed to the ground. Or maybe he was tossed there by the bandits. Regardless, the last thing he remembered before he blacked out was smelling burnt flesh and the smoke from something that had been tossed next to him on the ground. Devon shook off the memory of that fateful day when he lost his entire family, his home, and his sight. He was astride his warhorse and was heading to where he now called home, the Worm. The Worm was his castle and small plot of land situated at the mouth of Freegard. Freegard was nestled between where the Sarjaka and the Heligsvalet meet and the John Mayen. They formed what looked like an open dragon's mouth along with the upper and lower hills that spurred off from them. After several long campaigns, his tired body would welcome the hearth that dominated the great hall of his keep. He had trained his warhorse to return here from wherever they may be. By his reckoning, he was about a mile west of the Joktan River, and therefore a day and a half's ride from rest. He heard riders approach from the west, 5 from the sound of it. As they neared, their mounts slowed down to a trot, then stopped before him. "Lord Devon," one of the riders said, "it has been a long time." It was the voice of his lieutenant, an acting lord of the castle in his absence. They had spent quite a few hours talking together in the years he was in Devon's service, and as a result Devon knew his voice well. Today, however, there was something not quite right about it. Was it the tone? The inflection? Was it the way he pronounced his words? As Devon pondered this, he also noticed his lieutenant's four companions slowly spreading out around him. Devon sensed his warhorse's uneasiness as the great beast shifted its weight on its legs. Then, suddenly, the true nature of the quartet came to light. One of them moved upwind of Devon, and he got a whiff of rotting flesh. Devon drew his two-handed sword from the scabbard on the warhorse's flank and prepared for the battle to come. If he could see, he would have noticed their transformation into their true forms. The leader, posing as his lieutenant, had scaly skin that was black as the abyss itself. Pockmarks covered its body, or at least the parts not protected by its spiked armor. A smile curled its lips, revealing a mouth full of crooked fangs. The demon kept a hand on its own sword, but did not draw the weapon. Its companions looked like skeletons wearing dark red leather armor, yet it was their skin which was stretched tight over their bones. Large horns stuck out from the back of their heads, if for no other purpose than to add to their alien features. They were armed with speedums, which they leveled and advanced slowly on Devon. Devon was not prepared for this tactic, and was caught off guard when the sudden rush at him that he expected didn't occur. As a result, he was easily skewered from four directions as the speedum tips penetrated his body and held him in place for the leader to make the death blow. As Devon's blood spilled from the four entry points, the leader slowly drew his sword and approached Devon's convulsing body. Before Devon drew his last breath and suffered the death stroke, he heard in his mind the voice of his lieutenant say, "The Spider Queen sends her regards." And that, my friends, is where we will finish for tonight's reading. I hope you enjoyed it, and have to see what happens next week when I continue this saga. Please make sure that you subscribe to my channel, hit the bell notification so that you'll receive word of when I post these videos. Please make also sure that you leave comments in the comment section, because I do so love those, and I try to respond to those as quickly as possible. And until next week, and as always, see you soon.